If you are a performer who's looking to elevate your burlesque acts, your performance, and take it to the next level, I am going to give some of my advice of some of the things that I tend to see in a lot of performances, and also recommendations of how to pull the audience in and elevate your performance. Let's go. My biggest tip number 1, make your reveals matter. I have seen so many performers who are really great in a lot of ways. Maybe they have great stage presence, maybe they have really great dance experience that they lean on, maybe they do acrobatics in their act, they are really amazing at lip syncing and doing drag and burlesque. There's a lot of things to be good at in burlesque. However, it doesn't matter how good you are at a certain thing. The moment I see somebody take off an item of clothing and then move on, you've lost me. But do not worry, because it does take time, and for me it also took time. I have a video that is talking all about the tease in burlesque. Check it out if you're curious to see what that means and what are some ways you can really drag out your burlesque. Anything can be teased, whether that is taking time to seduce, taking time to breathe, taking time to show off this fabulous costume you have, your great personality and smile, your funny humor, whatever it is. Make sure you are giving your reveals and your costume just as much love as you are giving the audience. Your costume is another entity in your act. It is not all about you, but it is also about what your costume does and how it comes off. Please, please, please focus on your reveals first. Don't use it as an afterthought to anything else you do. Burlesque's foundation is in the reveals. And speaking of which, taking the time, take your time. I am someone who is very, very guilty for moving and moving and moving and moving, just like the Energizer Rabbit. Even in the most extreme acts with the most energy, take time for pause, take moments of breath very intentionally, and just be able to feel yourself and be present in the moment. It is going to give the audience time to really absorb what they just saw, whether that was a reveal, a trick, a gimmick, something really funny. Taking moments of breath and pause gives the audience that time to release whatever kind of adrenaline you just gave them. And it also helps you to ground yourself in your act as well, especially if you're doing a high energy act. Often a lot of performers do forget to breathe, and you don't realize that until after your act is finished, how you're like making sure you actually breathe for your own physical health, but also it can help put the energy into your act of what happens when you breathe slow, what happens when you breathe fast, what happens when you take really long, big breaths or very short breaths, and just play with it. Because if you think about your day-to-day life and how you exist, you'll notice your breathing changes depending on whatever is going on around you. It can create feelings of anxiousness, sometimes it can have feelings of anticipation, sometimes groundedness, sometimes excitement. If you know how to control your breath on stage, then you know how to guide and control your audience to feel what they should be feeling in certain points of your act. Next up, if you use props, make sure you're only using relevant props. I see a lot of performers where they will pull out every single prop they can, but the audience sees it for 2 seconds, and that is it. If you have a bottle on stage with you, don't just go for a standard size bottle. Make it a prop. Have a big bottle so it reads from the back of the stage. If you're gonna use a sign, write thick and big letters and words so the audience, again from the back of the audience, can read what it says. If you have anything that you interact with, make sure you're actually taking the time to really use it, acknowledge it, feel it, use it to tell your story. If it's a prop that you never use, you use it for 5 seconds in your act, you can do that same act without that prop, then do it without the prop. I want to see acts that if you have a prop, it better be as essential as the choreography or as anything else that you're saying in that act. And I know some performers have a rule of 3 of if you use a prop, you have to go back to it 3 times. I'm a little bit less particular with the specifics, but I just want to make sure that that prop has an impact. Otherwise, if it doesn't have an impact, leave it. This is probably a pretty obvious one, and also I think very fitting for point number 4, but break your fourth wall and don't forget about your audience. It is an art form that can pull the audience in, and you make eye contact. You go into the audience, you mingle. It's gonna look very different depending on your act, the style of the act, the intention of the act. A lot of acts are going to very intentionally break that fourth wall a lot, and a lot of acts are very intentionally not going to break that fourth wall because it might be a more narrative-based act. But don't forget about your audience, and when you make those decisions, make sure you're being intentional about whether or not you want to interact with the audience or not. Find ways to ground yourself if you find eye contact is too much, and if you're not able to make eye contact with the audience, intentionally use it to look at your costume, your arm, your glove, face, look at the back of the audience, but really making sure that you are taking the time to acknowledge your audience so that they can be pulled in to your act. Next up is musicality. Play with musicality. A lot of my favorite acts are people who have good musicality. I don't mean musicality as in choreography. Trust me, I am not a dancer at all. I cannot do 5, 6, 7, 8. It throws me off. But musicality is so much more than just choreography and beats. You can think about performing and moving to the song lyrics and the singer, the piano, the percussion, the beat, so many other things. If I was a musician or a dancer, I'm sure I could give more examples of what you could dance to. When you listen to your music, there are so many different ways you can move to it. So you can choose to dance to any of those pieces to match. So if it's a fast tempo, you can go fast, or you can also do the opposite. So if it's a fast tempo, to help counterbalance it, you might want to move especially slow to create drama and suspense. When I think of musicality, that's one piece. The other piece I see is diversity and making sure you are changing your movements, going from highs and lows and big moves and small moves and creating a roller coaster with your choreography. Some people use very intentional choreography that is the exact same time every time. Some people are a little bit more improvised or a little bit more flexible, and they just kind of say, this is the time when my glove comes off, this is the time when this costume piece comes off. However you choose to choreograph, you can still be mindful of all of those pieces. Use diversity, use the music, and use variety. And speaking of diversity again, diversify your reveals. It's a lot to be innovative, to have unique reveals every time. I'm not necessarily talking about making every reveal unique, but really if you're doing the same reveal twice, 2 pairs of gloves, if you're removing 2 stockings, pant legs that have zippers up both sides, and you decide to do both leg individually, make them unique to each other. It's gonna stand out huge if I take off one glove like this, where it comes down my arm and I'm taking it off this hand here. And it's gonna look different if I like lick this arm and maybe I put it down on my shoe and I hold my glove with my shoe and I pull my glove up that way. Give the audience something that's unexpected from what they saw the first time. Next up, one of the biggest things that I really notice as well is face. Use your face. 70% of your performance is in your face. Again, you can be an amazing dancer, you can have amazing reveals, you can be incredibly innovative and shocking and surprising. But if I see deadpan, if I see thinking face, even if I see people who are having fun, but if you have the same look, then it feels like you're thinking, or it feels like you are not in the moment. You can have a small door throughout your entire act. I understand not wanting to have like the biggest smile or cheesy smile, campy face if it's a very seductive act. But one of my favorite things that I like to keep in mind is levels and intensities. If I'm smiling, if I have a very bubbly act, I don't always have to be at 100, but what does my face, if I'm happy, if I'm excited, what does my face look like if it's 10%? What does excitement look like at 50%? What does excitement look like at 100%? As Ivor Handful says, what does it look like at 110%? And the extreme. Move your face, make sure again it's dynamic, it's changing throughout your act, reacting throughout your act. Really take advantage of your face because again, 70% of that performance is from this It's a lot to think about it in the moment if you've never done it before. Really practice in a mirror. Every single show before the show happens, I'm stretching my face, I'm warming it up. I'm going like, ooh, ah, yeah. Take the time to learn how your face moves. How does it work? What does it look like in different extremities and different emotions and facial expressions? Take advantage of that, because the more you practice on your own, the more it will naturally shift on stage when you're in the moment, and you don't have to think about it nearly as much. And speaking of being on stage, use the stage. It depends on the stage. Definitely if you're in a very tiny venue with a very small stage, sometimes you're kind of restricted to a very one spot. But if you have a stage that's big or that's medium-sized or good size for you to move around, make sure you're not just using the middle of the stage, but you're actually moving from side to side. You're taking advantage and actually acknowledging the audience on the right, the left, the middle, the back, the front. Take advantage. Go upstage to the back of the stage, go to the front of the stage, use those depths, use layers even, so sometimes you'll be standing, maybe you're sitting at some points, as best as you physically can within whatever your capabilities might be. If you need a chair, chairs are great to help you change your levels. Make sure you're using that stage. That's gonna really, really help you stand out. One of my favorite acts is an act by Jenny Sequa and Burlesque, which was at the Burlesque Hall of Fame a number of years ago. Literally, they just sit in 2 chairs the entire time, and that's because they're driving in a car, so it makes sense for them to be in one spot in the center of the stage. But the way they do it is so brilliant, and I'm gonna actually include a link in the description down below, because I think everybody needs to watch that act. And you'll notice even in the beginning of their act, when they're not both in the vehicle, they use that stage extremely smart, so as an audience member, you know what's happening, and you can tell there's a distance of one person coming from off in the distance, and then suddenly they're coming into focus. Very simple. The most simple way you could do this act, but it's genius, and I think you should watch it. So use the stage. And if you don't or can't, be intentional with how you use it. Make sure you carry yourself and your energy of your act from the very beginning to the very end. So often we see performers who, you can tell it's them. If it was me, you can tell Cherry Cheeks is on stage performing, but maybe before the act, as I'm getting on stage, you can tell it's not Cherry Cheeks, but it's like my civilian self. Or after the act ends, you can tell it's, again, my civilian self walking off stage. One of the cool things about burlesque is it is an illusion that we get to create. Carry yourself throughout. There was a performer, I don't remember their name, but they had a janitor act. They were walking through the audience as a janitor, mopping and sweeping, and they were doing this while the MC was talking, and they were shoving the MC off stage. And then the music started, and then they did their act, and then they carried themselves off stage again like that. I know people who, as their animals, maybe they're a lion, they'll still have that same lion fierce energy and walk off stage like that. Strut your stuff, be stoked. But it does make a huge difference to keep the audience in that realm of whatever your act or your story is, the moment they see you and the moment you leave. And it can be super cool when you get to see that. And last but very not least, point number 10, tap into your authenticity. It's so easy in burlesque to see all of these, you have to do this, you must do this, do that. I'm just as guilty as anybody. Heck, I'm making a video right now of what to do. However, at the end of the day, burlesque is unique to everybody. Everybody's in it for different reasons. Everyone gets inspired by different things. Everyone likes different styles and genres and reveals and etc, etc. So make sure you're not trying to fit into a box, because the audience does know, and a performer is genuinely enjoying themselves or genuinely sharing a piece of themselves with the audience. We can still push ourselves. I know I've done acts that are way outside of my usual realm. When I first started doing classic burlesque, I was not a classic burlesque performer at all. But now I love it. Sometimes people do like to push themselves or go outside of their own realms. Make sure as you're creating acts, create acts that do resonate for you, that you do want to push yourselves with, or that you do want to have fun with. You don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a costume. I have a lot of costume pieces from the dollar store, or a lot of costume pieces from the thrift store that I've fixed and upcycled. Be authentic to you. Don't push yourself beyond boundaries where you're suddenly feeling like you have to impress other people, especially when we talk about burlesque as self-expression, which means you. Use what's unique to you. Use your own authenticity to create your act. And again, the audience will notice. And that's it. Those are my 10 tips for today. Thank you for watching. I am curious for anyone else. If you have questions, leave them down below. If anyone else has some simple tips of how you like to recommend people elevate their performances, I would love to see those as well down below. Otherwise, with that, I will see you next time. Bye!